Now for business update across the globe, we've got Rotus Oddiri joining us now. Rotus, how's it going? How are you?
I'm doing, my man. Good morning to you. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Mr. K. Good morning to all our viewers. Yeah, quickly, global Asian markets are still pretty much pressed, mixed Monday, mainly because of China. China, look, I think I'll one of these days do like an in-depth dive into what's happening with China. But basically, they cut their prime lending rates, 3-year, 5-year, about 10 basis points. It didn't move the markets at all. They were not impressed. China is just not, they're hamstrung as far as being able to put forward any further stimulus. The rate cut didn't do anything for the markets. What else are we expecting today? Jackson Hole, I think, as far as the United States, as far as Federal Reserve folks getting together. That's pretty much all we're seeing with on the global scale. Quickly move to the African continent and particularly Nigeria, since there's a whole lot going on now. The currency is still very much in focus. There's an illustration in today's Business Day, which I thought was pretty funny. You've got the president saying, "Go Fola, go." That's Mr. Shinobi. "I am concerned. Drop the wedge. What do you need? Do you need a boy?" And then you have the naira on wheels falling into a river. So illustrating the challenges. And of course, I do need to take this moment to apologize again to Rufai from Friday, since we're talking heavily about the foreign exchange matters. Things got a bit passionate on my side. Said he was lying, I shouldn't have done that. And I called you this weekend, we talked. So again, just making this public that I'm apologizing to Rufai for what happened on Friday. But thank you. Yeah. So
don't rush.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Okay,
and you should apologize to me too, because I was sitting in the
Sorry, sorry everybody. No, but so look, the reason was, of course, because looking at the fixed exchange rates, we don't have the capacity to maintain it, right? If you look at our devaluation chart that we put together, the historic nature of our devaluations have pretty much told us that the country is not capable of maintaining a fixed exchange rate. And this is pretty in-depth. When you go all the way back to July, August 2002 with Obasanjo, when it was devalued by 15% from 112 to 132, you go all the way down. Yaradua, 2008-2009, Jonathan, 2014-15, and then Buhari all the way from 2016 all the way down to 2021 from 410 to 435. And then you have President Tinubu on the 2023 around June 15th from 461 to 663. The Naira did on the I&E window as of August 18th on Friday, falling to 739. So look, literally a devaluation means you cannot maintain that price level. And you cannot, if you peg your rates, your reserves will suffer. Here is, let's say, for Financial Times headline from, I think it was 2014 when MFLA first came in. Nigeria devalues currency as oil prices drop. This was 2015, right when the administration had just come in. Then let's take a look at this quote here. Mr. Emefiele, who is facing his first crisis since taking over from Lamido Sanusi as governor earlier this year, again, this is 2015, said falling foreign exchange reserves were constraining the central bank's ability to defend the value of the naira. Gross foreign reserves have plunged 2 billion over the past 5 months to a 5-month low of 37.2 billion. Foreign exchange reserves were nearly 60 billion for the global financial crisis. So basically, all we've seen, what happened recently, is just another devaluation. And essentially, if you do not have the reserves, you can't maintain a peg. It's that simple. If you had the FX reserves to defend that peg, then you wouldn't have to devalue it in the first place. So that's just historically, the economic history is just there. Argentina devalued this year. Egypt devalued. In 2016, when Egypt got a $12 billion loan from the IMF, they devalued. It was one of the immediate things that they had to do. So going from there, as far as the country is concerned, we just the FX reserves now, if you look at where we are now, 17 or 18 billion when you back out the liabilities that are owed against it, FX forwards and JP Morgan, Goldman. We're even in a weaker position now than we were in that 2014 article. We go to today's headline in today's This Day. Big day, of course, with the ministers taking charge and being sworn in. In my opinion, I think the challenges that they're going to face is debts. I think that Nigeria's debts should be keeping every single minister that is being sworn in up late at night. Fiscal responsibility is the main issue that we're facing right now. And in my opinion, I think that is the largest challenge. Historical debt levels, low revenues, low productivity, and a lack of a scale for value-added goods. That challenge is facing us. How we get through it, I don't know. If you look at the debt picture, it is really, really ugly. I estimated, according to the government, our 9-month revenues were 4.2 trillion. Yeah, so full year, if you annualize it, it comes out to 5.6. Your total public debt is 46.25 trillion as at the end of 2022. The overdraft from the CBN is another 23 trillion. So your public debt from plus your CBN overdraft is 69.4. If you take the debts as a multiple of your revenues, that is 12.4 times your revenues. How does a country get out of this kind of hole? You must be fiscally responsible and you have to make drastic reforms. If a lot of people say that I talk theoretically, I don't know why. This is the reality. I said, let me take this extra step. Let's say Nigeria is an individual that makes 100,000 naira a month in salary. On an annual basis, that's 1.2 million. If you take that 12.4x multiple and apply it to an individual who makes 100,000 a month, that is 14 million naira versus that person's 1.2 million naira salary in a year. How does that person get out of that hole? This is taking it as an individual level, looking at Nigeria as a country. Let's use the states. Let's break it down further with the states. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but WAEC has seized the results of 8 Nigerian states because of a lack of payments. Now, they said that a number of the states, 6 of the states are working with them, and so they won't mention who they are. But they pointed out that Niger State and Zamfara are chronic debtors. Chronic. They singled out Zamfara. Zamfara owes WAEC 1.6 billion naira. So they basically, the secondary school certificate exam results have been seized. What is Zamfara's fiscal structure as we look at the states right now? 2021 IGR was 12.9 billion naira. FAC was 55.3. So as a percentage of total revenue, the IGR was almost nothing. Most of the money came from FAC. But even if you add everything together for Zamfara, it comes out to 68.2 billion. Zamfara's 2022 domestic debt is 112 billion naira, 2x or 1.8 their total revenue. And then I haven't even added foreign debt. Zamfara, for all intents and purposes, is underwater. And meanwhile, the immediate past governor, Mr. Matewale, is getting sworn in this morning as the Minister of State for Defense. And look at the debt he's leaving behind. When the new administration in Zamfara was asked about this debt, they immediately blamed Matawale and the prior administrations for the debts that they left behind. So if that is happening in Zamfara State and a number of other states that can't even pay 1.6 billion for WAEC, and think about the multiplier effect on students not getting their results, what do you think Nigeria looks like with a 69.4 trillion naira debt and only 5.7 trillion naira in revenues? A lot of people talk about cost of governance. Let's address cost of governance. Look at the National Assembly and their budget. The National Assembly's budget for 2022 was 134 billion naira. I think it's jumped for 2023. If you take it as a percentage of Nigeria's total debt, it is 0.21%. That is if we decide to scrap the National Assembly and eliminate them, which will have its own consequences because they make bills, they're the legislature. But assuming we just want to take it and just scrap them, I took it further. How many years will it take for us to pay off Nigeria's total debt if we used the National Assembly's budget? It would take us, wait for a drum roll, 518 years if you use that 134 billion to apply it to the total debt. People also talk about ministries, departments, and agencies. Somebody on Twitter tagged me saying, Rotus, look at this Punch headline. The ministries have applied, I think, a 1.3 billion naira budget to buy furniture, right? Fine. If you take the personnel costs for MDAs for 2022, it comes out to 3.2 trillion naira. As a percentage of Nigeria's total debt, that is 4.61. How many years would it take if you decided to scrap the entire ministries, departments, and agencies and apply that 3.2 trillion in overhead personnel costs to Nigeria's total debt? It would take you 21 years. This is the biggest chain around this country's neck, our debts. There is no way you will ever get effective palliatives, effective minimum wage, effective anything, capital expenditure, roads, bridges, unless Nigeria's debt is addressed.
Okay. So, Rotus, I accept your apology. All right, I've got nothing against you. You're my brother, and we go a long way. All right?
Thank you.
It has to be said. What you also need to understand is that there are different ways people see things, and this is where we differ, and I'll tell you where we differ. I'm happy you put up the chart from the days of Obasanjo up till now. If you also go through the line item, we used many different methods based on the peculiarity of the situation. Obasanjo's era, between 2001 and 2003, that was the time we grew about over 15%, 15.3%. Joseph Sanusi, then the CBN governor, employed many means, including the IFEM, foreign exchange market, window, and also at some point, he had to fix. What was the fix for? The fix is to be able to get stability. Soludo had the arsenal of reserves, so he could tinker and play with it whatever he wanted. Sanusi did not have it. Sanusi II did not have it. So what did he do? He looked for a way to get a lot of hot money in, FPIs, by floating, for a 1-year cycle. But Rotus, the other truth we are not telling everybody listening and watching today is the fact that the CBN, when they floated, they can't really give those FPIs in because the rates are not attractive. And if you increase the rates, it will also increase the government debt that we have on ground. But the CBN did not open up to Nigerians as regards this. Hence my argument about keeping it pegged. Because when you look at it, what I said is still what we came back to. We look for money to defend a fair value, which we'll find, to stop the slide. Because if we were truly floating, once market forces take over and speculators were playing, we're supposed to leave the market and let the market correct itself. But we have to defend to be able to stop the madness going on in the markets. So when it goes back to the point, my argument about fixing was till we fix the structural problem. I'm not saying forever. At a point, Sanusi pegged for about 6 months. The problem here was that the last administration also kept the fixed rate for too long. I think the formative question we should ask is, what did President Buhari do with all the money that was printed for him? Because we are not accountable. And this was what we said during the elections at the campaign, and people were always saying, don't go there. Just like I have argued across every part in my points, I want subsidy removal. But you can't remove subsidy without putting the fundamentals in place. Hence my analogy that it was too impetuous to have done it. At least you should have an energy mix. Other alternative sources of energy, CNG, whatever you want, should kick in. Because my argument has always been, yes, Rotus, I have read Yanu Varoufakis' book, and the weak must suffer what they must, about the Greek crisis. People must be able to take the haircut. People must be able to feel the pinch. We are not even spending too much on government. So if you remove that governmental revenue, but you see, at the outlook of people are feeling the pinch more, and they are also telling you that also watch yourself. But in the grand analogy, the people you want to save, when a lot is passed on them and it hurts them too much, they react and it stifles the productivity. I want a Nigeria at a point that our market can get to the point where we can have a lot of FPIs flooding in. Rotus, if you remember, there was a time in this country that the market will not shake if you have a daily demand. If we have one demand of over $300 million, the market will mop it up because there were many FPI money coming in. But it's not the same any longer. So the dynamics are different. If we had an economy like South Africa, where the pass-through effect on their foreign exchange rate does not really apply to your market, your local market, I would say go ahead and do whatever you want to do. You don't even need to cater about the South African forex rates. But here, the moment dollar goes up, your banana seller on the streets said dollar goes up. You'll be wondering, do they import banana in this country?
Not Mr. Ifeni.
No, you'll be wondering, do they import? The way there's a pass-through effect for everything. That's just my problem. As regards the ministers, I wish them well. And I think like Dr. Abati was saying, please, let us put KPIs forward for them.
Yeah.
Let them truly know what they want to do. So
that's the question. I'll come on from there in terms of KPIs. Rotus, for the economy, especially for the economy, the key ministers, of course, Mr. Wale Edun leading that as Minister of Finance and coordinating Minister of the Economy, also the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning and the likes. What would their initial KPIs be? In terms of, from your perspective, your analysis, you've highlighted a few challenges, debts being top of them. What would you say in terms of KPIs for them?
It's to reduce the debts. And to reduce the debts, you have to remove the fuel subsidies. I'm sorry, there was a headline on Saturday's Punch where oil marketers were saying they wanted more transparency and that the fact that you are reinstating a cap on prices means you are bringing back. So as the Minister for Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, you are the ministry that, I got all those debt numbers from the Ministry of Finance. The debt is number one.
Of revenue. So we have, for instance, the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy. That's a potential there, huge potential there, which has been largely untapped. We have the Ministry of Solid Minerals, another huge potential, largely untapped. Then the ministry, a number of people have praised the creation of the subsets from petroleum resources, gas. That's another potential there. So beyond just debt, I'm also looking at him working, in terms of coordinating the economy, looking for ways. Even tourism has been highlighted, even though I criticized that because it's hinged on a number of key success factors. But these areas, our eyes are watching in terms of how to show up revenue in these particular ministries.
Let's say you have a home, you've just moved into a new house. You have a room that you want to renovate and turn into an office. Money that you put into that room is capital expenditure. You turn it into an office, you have a new office that you have in your home, and now it's a revenue generator because you can now get a computer, you can get office furniture, and you can now start working and adding. The amount of debts that you owe for that person that has 100,000 naira salary and their debt is 14.2 million, where do you get the capex to put into that home to invest and get the revenues? Gas, to invest in gas is highly capital intensive. So minerals, to get them out of the ground, the companies, look at the JV, joint venture agreements with oil and gas companies. So basically with the debts constrains your ability to be able to embark on any new projects. It is the biggest chokehold. We must cut spending precipitously and then look at how you can raise revenues. But the debt has to be number one for Mr. Wale and others.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go on and on and on, but I'll just very quickly say this. I heard your argument, Rufai, and I can see what you're saying as well, Rotus. But my thought is just that we're between the
deep blue sea.
I know where we are doomed.
We're in trouble.
We are in trouble.
We're in serious trouble.
I'm not denying that.
When you float, you will kill so many people. When you peg, you will find money and not find it to defend the pegging of the naira, because you can't peg it and keep it there forever. We don't have the resources to keep it there forever. So you do it for 6 months. Those who are going to do their round tripping and they are waiting, they will spend.
Float, those that are doing their are still doing their pariolodo. They are doing it.
But the margin between a fixed rate, like the 461 versus 750 versus 739 versus 850, the margin for managed float is smaller.
What of this one the speculators did over the weekend?
Well, it's a smaller one.
They pepper all of us. Pepper all of us. I've become poorer.
Yes.
That's why I'm crying.
Yes.
I'm a poorer man than I was last month.
So that's the reality for many.
That's the reality. I'm a poorer man today than I was last month.
Thank you so
much.
My
position is just simple, that this government has no other choice but to think outside the box and look for solutions that is unprecedented, virtually unheard of, and that is not going to come from the set of people they have now. They need to look for people that will give them fresh ideas that is out of the box, because this is not going to work. Float or peg, nothing.
Agreed.
We're not going anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much.